Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're doing something a little different. We're not just going to tell you some scary stories. We're going to break them down, dissect them, really get into the anatomy of what makes a terrifying experience, well, truly unforgettable. We've got 3 true accounts to look at.
You've heard it a million times, right? On a dark and stormy night. But here's the thing. It's not just a cliché. It's an incredibly powerful tool for storytelling. It instantly creates this feeling of isolation, of vulnerability. The world you know just gets washed away by all that rain and noise.
Yeah, that's a direct quote from one of the stories we're getting into. Today, we're going to explore 3 true accounts where the absolute chaos of a thunderstorm gets shattered by something, well, something far more terrifying. A human element that just does not belong.
All right, so let's get right into it. First up, we need to understand why a thunderstorm is the perfect, and I mean perfect, catalyst for fear. It's not just bad weather, you know? It's basically an environmental accomplice to the horror that's about to unfold.
So who are we talking about? We're going to be weaving together the experiences of 3 totally ordinary people. You've got a runner, just out on his usual route. A husband, trying to get away from a fight, hiding out in this isolated building. And a designated driver, just a guy trying to get his friend home safe. 3 completely normal nights that turn into absolute nightmares, all thanks to something lurking out there in the rain.
Think about it. The storm creates this wall of sound, right? And that does 2 really crucial things. First, it makes you feel completely cut off from the rest of the world. But more importantly, it hides whatever might be creeping up on you. Suddenly, every little snap of a twig, every shadow, it's all amplified against this crazy, chaotic backdrop. Okay, so now let's look at how the horror actually begins to build. In every single one of these stories, it doesn't start with something you see. It starts with a sound that just cuts right through the noise of the storm and tells you that something is very, very wrong.
For our runner, he's just lying in his bed, and this is the first crack in his whole sense of safety. It's a human sound, a sound of distress coming from right beneath his window, a place where nobody should be. It's an immediate, chilling violation of his personal space.
And then there's the husband. He thought he was totally alone in this remote building. For him, this sharp, violent sound is just undeniable proof that he's not. Look, a storm can explain away a lot of strange noises, right? But it can't explain the sound of a window being deliberately smashed.
And for our designated driver, his signal is way more subtle, which almost makes it worse. He's pulled over on some deserted road. He knows he locked his car. And then he hears it, this one little unnatural rustle. And that's it. That's the sickening moment he realizes that stopping his car, trying to be a good person, was a terrible, terrible mistake.
Okay, and this is where the tension really starts to ramp up. The threat escalates. It moves from something you hear to something you finally see. Or, and this is the really chilling part, in one case what remains completely unseen, which, as we're about to find out, can be way, way more terrifying. So this really shows us 2 totally different flavors of fear. On one hand, you have the known threat. The runner and the driver's buddy, they see a person acting erratically. It's terrifying, but it's visible. The husband, though, he faces the unknown. He hears all this evidence of an intruder, but finds nothing. And that leads to a much worse fear. Is someone hiding, or am I just losing my mind? And this quote, this is that exact moment for the husband. All his anger about some potential vandal just evaporates. It's replaced by this primal, ice-cold dread. Suddenly, the idea of a simple intruder seems a lot less scary than the possibility of something else entirely. Something he just can't explain. So this brings us to a really crucial point in all these stories. Each person gets pushed past their breaking point. You know, that moment where rational thought just shuts down. The logical part of your brain goes offline, the fear center, the amygdala, takes over, and all you're left with is an immediate, gut-level decision.
We can actually break that moment down into 3 super quick stages. They happen in seconds. First, you get the anomaly, that sound or sight that just doesn't belong. Second, the realization hits. This is a real threat. And third, that instinctual split-second reaction that decides everything that happens next.
And what's so fascinating is how different those reactions are. The runner? He basically goes into a freeze/fight mode, just bracing for impact. The husband makes a pure flight decision. He completely abandons his property to get away. But the driver? His choice to flee is the most complex, isn't it? It involves this moral calculation, this decision to ignore someone who might need help. And that's a choice that is absolutely going to haunt him.
But here's the thing. What makes these stories so powerful isn't the big, scary confrontation. It's the complete, total lack of answers at the end. See, our brains are wired to find patterns, to get closure. When a story just leaves you hanging, it creates this mental itch you can never, ever scratch.
And that right there is the key. That's the real horror. A monster that you defeat, it's not scary anymore, but a question mark, a mystery with no solution. That is absolutely terrifying because your mind will just loop forever trying to fill in the blanks with the worst possible scenarios. And that fear just gets cemented in deeper each time.
And this is really where these experiences leave their deepest scars. For the runner, it becomes this constant, nagging paranoia. For the husband, it's that terrifying question of his own sanity. And for the designated driver, man, it's the unbearable moral weight of the choice he made.
And then the morning comes. The storm passes, the world goes back to normal, the rain stops. For the designated driver, get this, even his sabotaged flat tire was gone the next day. The only physical proof he had just vanished, which only deepens the mystery of what the hell actually happened on that road. 0. That's it. That's the number of logical explanations these guys have been able to come up with. Not one. None of them can square what they experienced with the rational world. And that impossibility, that is the source of the terror that stays with them.
And that, I think, is the real genius of these kinds of stories. The most powerful horror doesn't spoon-feed you all the answers. Nope. It leaves the biggest, most important questions for us to wrestle with. What if he had gone back for her? What if the husband had stayed? What if that woman had gotten into the runner's house?
This quote from the husband, it just perfectly captures the heart of these unresolved terrors. He's weighing the fear of a real person against the fear of losing his own mind. And he says, I don't know which is scarier. The horror isn't just what happened, it's the unbearable uncertainty of what it all even meant. And that is the final chilling thought we're left with. The storm always passes, right? But for these people, that feeling of safety they had before that night, it's gone, forever. And it really makes you ask yourself, what happens when one ordinary night completely and permanently rewires your perception of the world?